Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Oddcast. And tonight's a live show. Surprise! Topher decided not to show up for work tonight. So I called out to all my mates. I rang up Friendly Geordies. I reached out to Punters Politics. I asked Abby Chatfield. I asked Hannah Ferguson and even Antoinette Lattouf and Jan Frank. And sadly, none of them were available. It turns out no one wants to be my friend. So unfortunately, I've had to scrape the bottom of the barrel and find someone who wanted to be my friend. And that person is none other than Rukshan.
Thanks, Carl. That's a great intro. You've called on me. I am the Uber of podcasts. So you just need to put a request in the Uber podcast app, and I show up ready to go for your podcast. So great to be here, guys. Hello, everyone. Again, I'm glad to be here as the great replacement for Topher Field. This is the multiculture that you were promised.
Yes. See, everyone, see. We've got the Sri Lankan taking the Aussie jobs.
This is what happens if you don't have a monoculture. Like, we just take all the podcast jobs and everything. Like, Topher will become. I am Topher. I just need to maybe
100%.
do a bit of working out, like Topher's working out these days, I know, and maybe talk for extended periods of time, and I'm pretty much Topher.
Just repeatedly interrupt me. That's it. Just repeatedly interrupt me and insult me, and you're Topher Field.
Yeah.
It's good to have you back. I had such positive feedback when you were on the other night, and everyone's feedback was it was so nice to listen to two people talk. They're not talking over each other. They're allowing each other to speak. And you know what? I think we need a bit more of that.
I agree. I mean, that's one of the things that I find about coming on your podcast with you, Carly, because when I'm doing with Avi normally, I can't really get a word in, or even if I'm talking, he wants to say the same thing in a different way. That's what I've noticed with Avi. He usually just repeats what I just said in his own way, and then he walks off like he's come up with his original thoughts. So that's what I have to deal with. So this is refreshing for me as well, for sure.
Bloody Jews, man! They're all the same.
I can't comment on that. I might get in trouble. I might not get my paycheck for this week. 7,000.
Those 7,000 shekels, man.
Exactly.
Do you know, I saw on X today someone, I can't remember who it was, is putting together a list of who they believe is on some kind of foreign payroll. And you know what? Everyone made that list but me. Everyone. Carl's on it, Callista, you, Avi, little old me. I'm not on it. No one thinks I'm worthy of some Israeli shekels, apparently.
So I would say, because the Mossad are actually very good. If you look at the history of the Mossad, they're very, very clever and intelligent in what they do. I would say most likely you are the Mossad agent in that case, because you're the least suspected.
You're on to me, damn it.
We're on to you now.
No, see, I'm thinking about Israel, right? Like Israel money and taking foreign investment. I'm like, I reckon Israel would be the one I'd go for. I reckon Qatar, man, that oil money, that's solid for another century. I reckon that's the one I want. So go somewhere where there's like, a really good supply. And so just letting the Qatari government know, I'm a gal. Like I will infiltrate.
You're open. You'll join Tucker.
Interesting? So G and I were just having a chat. We're just having our dinner before we came on, and we were looking at X, and obviously the Karl Stefanovic things happened, and we're going to talk about that. So with the way things are going right now, you can't actually have a conversation, one, with people on the same side of the political spectrum, but absolutely not across the aisle. My goodness. And I don't know, I kind of find it a bit exhausting because maybe you can speak to this, right? Because you and I would say differ on a couple of topics. I think we mostly align on most things. I think you're a bit more traditional conservative. But where I find it kind of weird is like, even though we all have a common goal, we all want to see Australia restored. I personally want Australia to dominate. I want us to be a superpower. Why the fuck aren't we? I can't get my head around it. And how we achieve that, everyone sort of obviously has different perspectives. But on our side of the political aisle, everyone's sort of attacking each other all of a sudden. I mean, it's been happening for a while, but I just don't understand what the objective is here. So if everyone's on the take, everyone's been a paid foreign asset, so who do we turn to? Like now they're all against Pauline Hanson. And I mean, we already have enough enemies. Why are we creating more? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, look, it's just a phase I think we're going through, especially in Australia. The right, the conservative side is pretty fractured. You have to understand we've had this, liberal force in politics for a long time as the the conservative side of politics, and that's obviously changed over the last 5-6 years, and to today where it's completely blown up. We have one nation running around and other small minor parties and different ideas being thrown out there. And I think it's kind of a phase where people are figuring out where they actually stand on these positions. And a lot of all alliances are changing. A lot of viewpoints that we've had in the past, just based on our circumstances today, are changing as well. So I've seen a lot of people that have had very steadfast views on issues like multiculturalism, then change those views now. People who have had different, views on what it means to be an Australian, they've adjusted those views now based on what's happening at the current time. And that is really a feature of the right side of politics. More broadly, like we're happy to have disagreements. We're happy to have these little internal struggles and figure out where exactly we're going. And it's never going to be this exact movement in one direction. But at some point, based on the leadership, really, like if someone does, what Pauline is kind of delivering that leadership at the moment, and a lot of people are, even if they don't support each other personally, they'll still back One Nation. I don't know if you've noticed that, like a lot of people who are fractured who still say they support One Nation right now. Yeah. So we don't really have a unifying figure is probably what I'm trying to say. Because when you do get a unifying figure, like the Americans, they got Trump for a while there, and he was very unifying there. And a lot of people got behind him from all the different factions because they realized this is the way the country's moving. And there was this common thing that they could measure themselves against. Right now in conservative politics in Australia, we don't really have that. You just have to look at the Liberal Party leader, Angus Taylor. He was having a shocking day trying to figure out what his position on multiculturalism is. So when the leadership of our major political parties are struggling to figure out exactly where they stand on issues, of course, the people that are out there on the outskirts like us are going to, be doing those same little battles as well amongst ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Trump was that unifying figure for America because he was that agitator, but he was also a household name, right? Like Trump was very famous already. He was off the back of The Apprentice. And so when you have that sort of like loud, bombastic personality, and then you say, hey, I'm going into politics, naturally you get an allegiance just from people knowing who you are. But here in the Australian politics, we don't have anyone, and I'm going to use the word cool. I'm not saying that Donald Trump's necessarily cool, but like someone with that kind of gravitas. Pauline's great. I like Pauline, but she doesn't command the room like Trump does, right? Like, and no one has spawned as many memes as Trump. And I think when you look at the traditional Conservatives, our Liberal Party, whether it's Angus Taylor, Susan Lee, Hastie, or whoever it might be, none of them have that showmanship, right? Which is not necessarily what you need in a politician, but it helps. It helps get people on board. It helps rally people up. And when you have someone I've only heard a little bit of Angus Taylor, to be fair. I've not seen him pop up in the news, but he's not exciting. He's not making me go, you know what? Yes, I'm on board, right? Like Pauline Hanson, she says it's straight from the horse's mouth, right? Like she's like your grandmother at the Christmas table just saying things, without even thinking. And you're like, I mean, she's right, probably wouldn't be how I would have suggested to say it as your media person, but, well, it's out in the open now. So we don't really have that person, do we? I mean, the last time the left had someone, it was Barack Obama, right? And in Australian politics, I don't even think the left has that person. Do you think they do?
They kind of had it in Kevin Rudd for a little bit there, Kevin 08 or whatever, like that period. I remember Kevin 07, whatever it was. He did have somewhat of a left-wing charisma that everyone in the left kind of gravitated towards him, and he was put up on a pedestal. Of course, that turned out to be a disaster for Australia, and we're still reeling from the effects of that even today when he's in public life. We're still suffering with Kevin and his antics. So I think he had a little bit of that for the left. But yes, since the Howard era, we haven't really had that. Tony Abbott was pretty close in terms of someone that did have a presence and, agitated the right people and had certain views that, people resonated with. He could be a politician, but also resonate with, everyday Australians in some aspects. Yeah. Scott Morrison really struggled with this. So
that man
he really he had no rhythm, and he was putting up photos of him cooking chicken curries and all this kind of stuff, but he didn't really connect with he didn't really connect with himself with the Australian people in a way where they respected him completely. I'm not saying you never get respect completely as a leader, but he never really had that connection. Pauline Hanson, she does have that. She has that it thing, which the opposition don't have at the moment, which is that's the hardest thing for the opposition to get over. They don't have anyone right there in that party who comes across as, leadership material, in a manner that can challenge Pauline right now. In the people stakes, like people gravitate towards her and listen to her and pay attention to what she's saying. Whereas with Angus Taylor, like you said, it's a bit boring. It's a bit stale. There are people in the Liberal Party who do have this ability to do this, but they're not really in that leadership position at the moment. So it just depends on what's happening, really. Australian politics in general is pretty boring if you compare it to the rest of the world. Like, I know we try to make it interesting, but if you compare it to what's happening in other parts of the world, it's pretty dry. Let's be honest.
It's dry because we really don't have. I mean, we definitely have problems. Please don't misunderstand what I'm saying there. But when I say problems, we're not engaged in these massive wars. Yes, we contribute via helping out America as their ally, but as far as like regular ho-hum politics here, it's kind of same. And I think we're trying to import a lot of that American politics here. Particularly with we can thank social media, TikTok, Instagram, X for all this. We're importing a lot of the way that people approach politics and consume politics. And it's become a lot easier now for people to monetize social media. So, you've got a lot of the clickbait stuff, the rage bait stuff. And I think what that's done is not only increase the divide, but also what it's done is allowed people to become like pseudo influencers. A lot of politicians now, even though they're part of parties, whether they're part of the Teals, the Greens or Labor or even Liberals, I'm trying to think who that might be on the Liberals, but I'll get back to you. They've got the Riz, they've got a bit of social media following, and they become rock stars in their little echo chamber. And so I think we give politics a little bit more excitement for that stuff, because when it's like infighting or they cross the aisle to have their debates. But realistically, the conversation is pretty boring. It's like, let's talk about our economy. Let's talk about the battlers. Let's talk about education and health. And, that's it. That's Australia in a nutshell, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's dry. Again, it's not to demean the issues that we're going through. Like you said, there are some very serious things that we are discussing as a country at the moment. But the way that it's carried out is quite dry. So I don't actually mind the fact that there's different ways that people are now discussing politics. I think that's a really good thing. I actually read an article on the ABC the other day following Pauline Hanson's National Press Club address. And they were discussing this very thing about how Pauline Hanson's managed to tap into this, because she has a whole army of people that are clipping her videos and putting up little short clips, and people that wouldn't necessarily watch the press club. Okay, like just think about it. An ordinary person in Australia, even myself, if I wasn't watching politics, I wouldn't be watching the press club at lunchtime. Like, who does that? We don't have time for that. Like, it sounds so boring.
100%. And why would you?
Why would you, right? But today, you get home at around 5 or 6. You go into your social media, and someone like myself or Avi or you guys, we've watched it, we've clipped it up, we've got the best bits, the funny moments or the moments where it was really serious on point, and that's what people are consuming. So we are getting politics right in front of people's faces more now. And politicians are actually under the magnifying glass more. So it's not necessarily a career now that you can just slide into the background and work in the shadows. So you have to be a bit more front facing and be open to that social media side of things to actually resonate with the voting base, because people are every age are interacting on these apps and seeing these videos, and they're understanding policy from that point of view. So yeah, the influencer does kind of become important in that aspect if they're the one delivering the message. Now, I think eventually politicians will become much smarter at this, like they have in America. They'll have a much stronger social media game. They'll have a younger teams, and they'll be doing these things just themselves. But for now, you do have this middleman almost of people curating and putting out content on the politicians that they like.
Yeah, and I mean, we're already seeing that. I've got to give credit where it's due, right? Like the Zohan Memdani thing in New York, that was a great campaign. I don't agree with it. I don't like Zohan. I'm very anti-socialist, but you got to give them credit where it's due. And I mean, I say this often about the Labor Party here in Australia. They are fantastic with messaging. Again, I don't agree with them, to be clear, but purely from a marketing position, I look at that and go, yeah, you're clever. You're smart.
Yep.
You know, Jacinta Allen the other day when she jumped on it and she had her own little take of the press club thing, I thought it was a cheap shot. But to be fair, she was quick. You know, like credit where it's due. It was trending. It was popular. She did it. She rode the social media wave. Bang. And to be honest, if I was her campaign manager, I probably would have told her to do the same thing.
Well, that's what you got to do. That's the reality of it. So you do have to respond to trends and viral things, or if a politician does something stupid, or if something like that happens, and you can then reuse that to give your take or give your message. That's what you should be doing if you want to get in front of people's eyes. Because, like I said, like what you said as well, traditional mediums aren't really the thing now. TV news and radio and stuff is not really where people are going for the news. So you have to be able to create your own political content. As someone that's in political office and get them in front of people's eyes somehow.
Not to tangent here, but we've got a question. I've got a super chat, first super chat of the night. Actually, no, Baz was. Sorry, Baz. We love you, Baz. We've got a question from Noah here. Rukshan, when is the opposition show coming back? I miss you and Avery every day. This is it.
Oh, guys, this is the opposition show now. I think I'm trying so hard. I'm reliving the opposition show by coming on podcasts at this time now with you, Carlz, because it's very hard to get Avi to work after 6 p.m. I'm like, come on, man, let's do the opposition podcast. It's like, oh, it's a bit late now. Want to just chill out.
He's an old man. He's an old man.
He's getting old. He's getting old. He's getting a lot of shekels, and he's just chilling out. So we have to convince him, and I'm working on it, guys. I will get a podcast with Avi, the opposition podcast. We will get it back, but it could be a daytime thing as well. I don't know if it's going to be in the evening. So we're just figuring that out, guys. So I just recently joined Rebel. And I'm trying to get Avi into shape and get things into shape here in Australia.
Is this going to be the most organised Rebel's ever been with you on board? It's going to be like, right, we have a schedule. We're committed to this. We're doing that. Oh, I'm excited for you guys.
I have to say that I have to say that Avi is a very hard worker. He's a very hard worker.
It can't be too nice.
He needs to take his break though when he finishes. That's the thing.
Yeah. We can't be too nice to him. I mean, we love Avi, but still, it's a bit like Topher. No, the podcasting thing's hard. Topher and I normally record this podcast on a Wednesday during the day because it just makes it a bit easier. Nighttime, I have to be like on my game and make sure the brain's still working. But I enjoy these things, and I think the long form discussions are helpful. But it's a lot easier to get virality through the reels and the easy stuff. But speaking of podcasts, we need to talk about this. This is just broken that Channel 9 has actually fired Karl Stefanovic, as per The Australian. And it's all over the Tommy Robertson podcast that was released yesterday. Now, I've only seen clips of it. Gareth watched the whole thing. He said it was really good. Nothing outrageous in it. Did you watch it, Rukshan?
I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched bits and pieces of it. I've watched a lot of Tommy Robertson content over the years, as you can imagine. And, it's nothing for someone that knows Tommy Robinson and watches his content. There's nothing really new there. So I didn't spend too much time watching it. But I understand to a newer audience, especially Carl's audience, that haven't really been exposed to some of Tommy's views and ideas, it would be really interesting to hear that from Tommy's perspective and see some of the parallels between the UK and Australia. So I think, look, from what I've seen, it's a very good, podcast. This is literally just Tommy sharing his story and giving some views on some parallels that exist between the UK and Australia. So it looks like a very good podcast. And like you said, there wasn't anything, at least from my view, as someone on the right, there wasn't anything I thought that was too controversial compared to anything else he's put up beforehand.
I love this ominous quote here from Karl yesterday. This tweet came out last night. He said, "What happens when speaking your mind comes at a cost?" And he interviews Tommy Robertson, and literally a day later, we find out he's been fired from Channel 9. Now, you have a different take on this, but before I ask you, the way I view this is, Dan Bongino, he has a rule. That's the 24-hour rule, right? And whenever I see something like this happen, I always go, I'm going to pause. I'm just going to watch. And, of course, there's a flurry of social media activity. Everyone's quick to jump on it, and I get why. I understand how it works. But I look at it and I go, there's more to that. I just need to wait a little bit. And I was like, was it E. Karen? Was it E. Karen that got it taken down? Or was it Channel 9 pulling the strings? And I was like, this needs a bit more time. And then I saw Pauline Hanson posted it, and I was like, okay, so it's not the content itself. It's not E. Karen. This is a Channel 9 thing, 100%. And the way I looked at it, if you contrast this to just what happened with Kyle Sandilands and Jackie O and ARN or whatever they're called, I think Karl wanted out. And he's not an idiot, right? He's worked for Channel 9 for 20 years. He has a contract. He's been paid a lot of money. I think he wanted out of this contract. He understands independent media is far more lucrative, and also he can be untethered. I mean, he's on 2 weeks leave. He's over in London, and he's got Holly Valance. He's got Tommy Robertson. And, I'm assuming he's at ARC. I don't know if he said he's at ARC, but that's all happening at the moment. That's where Topher is. So I look at that and I kind of go, I think Karl's smart. He knew this would cause he didn't go into this blind, put it that way. And so I think it's a way of getting out of his contract. And of course, it's going to come out with, press releases and media releases like, hey, we're parted ways, blah, blah, blah. But I think he just wants to be untethered. You see it a bit differently, though.
No, look, I think there's a lot of, I agree with a lot of what you've said, but how this played out just gives me a different vibe.
Gives you the
if he had, if he hadn't deleted the videos, I would say that, you're kind of on the right track. But the reason that he deleted those videos early in the morning today feels like it was to try to save his contract and save his job. He was kind of trying to have his cake, and eat it too type situation with Channel 9. And I think just for Channel 9, it just became untenable because there's always been a bit of friction around him starting his own podcast where the other talent doesn't really get this ability. So there's friction along those lines as well. And then also the controversy surrounding, again, like I don't think it's controversial, the interviews that he's done. And it's good that there's people like Karl out there doing these type of interviews and doing this. But I think he was trying to have both worlds, and you can't really have both of these worlds. It's not compatible. Maybe it should be, but it doesn't really work out that way. And I think Karl's found that out. Yes, maybe he wanted his contract to end and get out earlier on, but the behavior of actually self-censoring himself. And I was saying this earlier today before we found out that he was actually sacked. I was pointing out that he's someone that actually did self-censor himself, that no one's actually cancelled him per se. He has decided based on, his job, and, Drew kind of confirmed it in a comment that Drew put towards me. Now, I say Drew confirmed it because he works with Karl now in some regards. Karl's decided to take the video down as a last-ditch effort to keep his job at Channel 9. But obviously, all that momentum and all the issues with Channel 9 and all the reputational things, they probably just thought, let's just end the relationship. And he's not going to play ball. And there's a few other, controversial-looking interviews coming out, Holly Valance and Dr. Malhotra. And, it's Nine is going to always have to be dealing with this as a side issue. And for a company, at the end of the day, they are a business. It is going to become annoying. And it's whether it's worth having Karl around for that. Now they've decided it's not. That might impact them. Who knows? I don't even know who's watching Channel 9 Today's show in the morning. I have no idea who watches these things anymore. But maybe it's a bad thing for them. And yes, I think it could be a really good thing for Karl for sure. He's obviously got the talent. He's someone that advertisers and people that want their products in front of people's faces might be interested in doing side deals and sponsorships with. He's in a different league to what we're doing from the background that he comes from. So yeah, definitely that comes with a lot of benefits and privileges. I just don't know if he's a straight shooter. I just don't know if he's if he's credible. Like if he folded at the first moment of trouble and he just lost his job anyway, what does that show? I just don't trust these guys as being straight shooters, because he spent decades, suckling at the teat of mainstream media and playing ball. And now he wants to go off on his own. Does that really change the leopard spots? I don't know. I think Karl's still got a bit of that in him, which is why he self-censored and cancelled himself in a last-ditch effort. But it hasn't really worked out for him. But it is going to work out for him, I think, in the long run, obviously. But it's just in the actual, with everything that's kind of happened, he doesn't come across as someone that fell on his sword and was being a courageous hero for the cause. He did try to save his job.
Yeah, that's certainly something that could be playing into it as well. I mean, obviously, we don't have access to his contract. I dare say that, he would have his own lawyers, obviously, looking at it. He probably thought, he was fine and the nuance was okay. But, a bit like Icarus flying too close to the progressive sun, he got burnt. And maybe, like, in a weird way, maybe this is a blessing for Karl because the gloves come off. I mean, we already knew this, though. His first episode, wasn't it was it Pauline or Barnaby? What was his first episode?
It was Pauline Hanson, I think.
That's what I thought, yeah. He came out swinging. He wasn't trying to like softball it, right? And he's had on Pete Evans. Like, he knows he's picking divisive figures. And there's some, regular people in there as well. He's had John Howard and whatnot. But I think Karl knew that if he was going to do this thing, he had to like come at it, like a bull from the gate and hit the ground running, because it was going to either fall in a heap or get people talking. And I mean, everyone in media is talking about this bloody podcast. Everyone. And we're going to watch some of the reactions. But I mean, for a man who's already wealthy, thanks to 20 years in the career, he knows.
Well, I mean, apparently he's not. Apparently, like, Drew was telling me there was it's like having a figurative gun to his head about his mortgage and all the things that he had to consider before removing that video. So, but you're right. He's wealthy. He's a multimillionaire, and he's been in this game for a long time. That's what I mean. Yeah. So the moral courage to do what he did, I think he just did it for the money to try to save his job, is what I'm saying. So again, I think it's great that Karl is around doing these things and getting people to talk about. I want people to see Tommy Robinson. So if people that don't normally engage with the kind of content that we do, because we do talk about Tommy Robinson and even Avi's interviewed him a heaps of time. They're like good friends, right? So, but most people might not watch that, right? Because they don't know who we are. But Karl, he taps into a different audience. So I think for the right, if he's, talking to these people, it's a good thing. But what happens, Carlz, is the real test is in a few months, right? Kind of similar to what happens. It's kind of similar to what happened with Pete Evans, because he kind of went off the rails a little bit after he left, after he had his thing, right? Whatever you think of him. But same thing. Like right now, there's interest, obviously, because there's a bit of back and forth with all the media interest. But what's going to happen from a few months from now, and it remains to be seen. But if someone can make it successful, it would be someone like Karl, because he's starting from a position of a great privilege and access to a lot of different people. So for a podcast, of course, that's a great win. You can get a lot of people on your show. So I think he will be successful for sure.
Yeah. G just wrote a comment there. It's the Streisand effect, and I agree. I mean, in a weird way, Nine's given Karl an amazing blessing, because this has just created a media frenzy. It's putting more eyes on it. Pauline's posted it, so it's going to be the most viewed podcast, no doubt. Because people love a little bit of controversy. But like when you look at this, people are on the left are obviously very upset that Karl's platforming people with dangerous misinformation. They're calling him Australia's Temu Joe Rogan. And I love how Joe Rogan is always like, that's just the default.
Sorry. They're saying Joe Bogan. It's just
Joe Bogan.
That's the name they've come up with. That's the name they've come up with for Karl, Joe Bogan. And he could be. I mean, he could be. Definitely, he could be.
You know what? I take great offense to that. I am a quintessential Aussie Bogani, and I am proud of my Bogan roots, and I'm okay with it. I'm Westie as, and it's fine.
It's not offensive at all anymore. I was listening to a radio segment, and they were talking about how it's like a term of endearment. It's like something to be proud of. So it's lost that derogatory meaning.
It's like, you can take the girl out of Sunbury, but you can't take the Sunbury out of the girl,
Fair enough.
But I look at like the Karl thing, right? When people try and say he's like Joe Rogan, the reason Joe Rogan is so successful, one, the American market is like, it's huge and it's incredibly lucrative. Joe Rogan, not quite the same as Karl. He already had a successful TV career, so that's part of it. And then the other part of it was also he had so much time under his belt interviewing his mates and carrying around long before it became mainstream. And so I think it wasn't until he got to his like 1,000th show or something like that, that's when it started gaining massive notoriety. And he also has access to everyone. So the trouble with someone like Karl is, okay, if he's flying around everywhere like he is, I mean, he's in the UK, then sure, he's going to attract some pretty big international talent. But I mean, when it comes to Australia, like, are we going to just keep interviewing the same people? Like, it gets a bit boring, doesn't it?
I mean, look, there is a bit of that. It's probably a smaller crowd in Australia for sure for these things. But yeah, like you said, Karl can fly around and interview different people. The problem I think you'll have is the best podcasters, I think, honestly, are ones who manage to interview all sides of politics. And Karl doesn't want to, necessarily end up in a position where he is being decried by the left as someone that's toxic. So left-wing figures don't necessarily want to be seen with him.
Yeah.
And does become more of a right wing, figure interviewing people who don't really care about that cancel culture stuff, and that's possible to happen in Australia. Like you saw what happened with Channel 9. So can he, get other people that work at TV stations to come on his show? Would there be issues for them as well? This is the kind of thing that we see in Australia. Again, I don't agree with this cancel culture. I think it's horrendous, but this is what we're up against, and it's a different market in Australia as well when it comes to these contractual obligations for a lot of these talent and individuals that are very worried about their reputation. I've had so many people, Carl's, down through the years that said, "Oh, we'd love to come on your show, but it's not good for like whatever they're doing." It's like, this is Australia. In America, they don't really care as much. Some of the politicians and people, but for
and
us, it's like the whole thing.
They expect it, right? Like they know that's coming. Australians are a little bit more hesitant in that.
Yeah,
like we're laid back and easygoing, but I don't think people enjoy confrontation like that. And so you get a lot of people just going, like, I'm just going to sit this one out. I don't really want to court trouble here.
Yeah.
And you see this a lot. I put up a reel, was it yesterday? I was talking about Hannah Ferguson, Cheek Media. In the comments, she said we should have a chat. And I was like, anytime. So I said, I shot you a DM. I sent her a DM. And people like, oh, Carly, you're pretty feisty. I don't know if it's going to be a polite chat. And I said, no, a polite chat is this, where you and I just chat it out. We're not screaming at each other. It's not about getting gotchas. I'm not lecturing you. You're not lecturing me. It's just an exchange of ideas. Because Hannah might find that, maybe we disagree politically, but maybe we get along quite well. Who knows? But her immediate reaction was to block me. And I look at that and I go, how does that help anything, right? And the issue with blocking, right? And don't get me wrong, I block plenty of people myself. I'm not saying don't block people. But, they fear people like Hannah and her audience. Because if someone were to talk to me, Hannah and her audience, Abby and punters and all that, if you put a foot out of place with those guys, their entire audience comes for you. And we saw that recently. Did we talk about this last week with Lisa Jane Spencer, the comedian? Did you and I chat about that?
Maybe. I know what you're talking about, though. Yeah, I can't remember if we did.
So I don't really want to comment on Lisa and her comedy. Everyone said their piece about that. What I was more interested in was Lisa was working at a place in Victoria called the Hepburn Springs. And what you saw is everyone on the left picked up the story, right? It was Antoinette Lattouf, what's her name? Abby Chatfield, Hannah picked it up. God, what's her name? It's on the tip of my tongue. Brooke Blurton, all of these very woke, progressive influencers picked it up. Again, Streisand effect. It made it way bigger than it was. And Lisa ended up benefiting from it substantially. But what they did was they mobilized their little army and sent them onto the Peninsula Hot Springs. And people were absolutely pummeling them, not just in comments. They were calling them, they were emailing. It was like a cyber attack, right? And this company may or may not have known Lisa was posting that, and I don't think they condoned it in any capacity, but they get blindsided. And that's what deters a lot of people from wanting to have conversations. They probably do agree with you or me or whoever, but that is the part that they go, I just can't deal with that. I don't want that on my business. I don't want that on me. And the left are known for this. They're very vicious.
Yeah. Well, even this whole Carl thing was a left-wing camp. There was a left-wing campaign organized by MWF or these witches or whatever they're called to go after the advertisers on Channel 9. So they are very mobilized. They do get organized, and they love the cancel culture as long as it's going after the right. So look, I'm not really into the whole cancel culture
so long as it's not them, right?
If it's them, they'll be like, oh my god, it's this breach of democracy and this free speech and that, all concepts they don't really believe in, really.
Sexism.
If you listen to the other things that they say. Yeah, so look, I mean, the right generally, like I saw those videos, and I see people on the right as well that maybe saw those videos and were offended, but you kind of just leave it like, oh well, like it's comedy, like it's a bit of a touchy subject, you know what I mean? Like there's different interpretations of that. As someone that grew up watching South Park, some of that comedy is like right down my alley. So so it just depends on the intent of comedy sometimes, and a lot of people on the right are maybe more sensible when it comes to looking at something like that. Whereas the left would, if they're offended by anything, they would make a big issue of it, and they understand that targeting not the individual but people around them is actually more effective because people around them are more, susceptible to crumbling. And that's the kind of the technique that they use for sure.
Well, not to put you guys through some torture, but I thought we could just watch a bit of lefty reactions to the Carl podcast. Are you keen?
Yeah, let's see. I haven't seen this.
I apologize for the torture. So this is the podcast between Jan Fran and Antoinette Lattouf, and it's called We Used to Be Journos. Now, for those who aren't familiar, Antoinette was the woman who got fired from the ABC, and then she just won, was it defamation from the ABC? Or unfair dismissal, sorry.
I think unfair, yeah.
So let's see what they have to say, shall we?
Fernardo speaking to Tommy Robinson on his podcast. There you go. The far-right agitator, Tommy Robinson, with his slew of offences and inflammatory language.
He's been to jail 3 times for assault, for fraud, contempt of court. He helped spark the race riots in the United Kingdom in 2024 after spreading rumours about refugees.
He's having a good old chinwag with Karl Stefanovic there, who incidentally is nominated for most popular news or public affairs presenter at the Logies. Nominations just came out this week, and wouldn't you know it, Karl is up there for best public affairs presenter. So really, we're the fucking chumps. Joke's on us, isn't it?
Far out.
Sorry, all y'all who are listening to this and just slowly melting down. Joke's on you. Joke's on us.
Now, I've got one more because Antoinette Lattouf is quite perturbed by this. So I'm gonna just make this harder for you guys. So here we go.
Everything is fine and normal, guys. Firstly, Karl Stefanovic is announced as a Logie nominee, and in the same breath announces his podcast crossover with UK's Tommy Robinson, the same Tommy Robinson who's been jailed 3 times, the same Tommy Robinson who inspired a race riot in the UK in 2024 based on misinformation about refugees. Yes, that fascist far right Tommy Robinson, fine and normal. He's just having a chat with our knockabout larrikin bloke Karl Stefanovic. Also fine and normal that at a Bush summit, a televised Bush summit, a filmed Bush summit last week, Gina Reinhardt, Australia's richest woman, made the suggestion that Australia just give land to Israel. We just give land to Israel so that they can develop more military bases, make more bombs to kill more people. Fine and normal. What's also so fine and normal about that is the lack of media interrogation. Did you hear about that? Did you know about that? Did you see that make headlines anywhere? No. I highly, highly doubt that you saw that make headlines anywhere. Also fine and normal is Kyle Sandilands expanding on his dalliance with One Nation. No, guys, I don't work with them. I don't work for them. I'm not on the payroll. I just like to hang out and say that Barnaby Joyce and One Nation are cool and I'm going to get behind them. Fine and normal. Also fine and normal that in the past week, Pauline Hanson, in almost every media engagement and interview, has gone on a rant about climate change not being real, there being a trans insurgency, that we need to be monocultural, whatever that means, and not being interrogated as to what cultural apartheid actually looks like.
And she keeps going on, but I don't know if it's about you, but I find that really delicious. She's very upset.
It's good value entertainment. I'm actually sad now that Carl's lost his job because if he hung around there and he won that award and kept doing more interviews, he would have more of these unhinged. Maybe that would be interesting to know. I enjoy these left-wing meltdowns. Obviously, they're very ideologically driven. It's their worldview. It's similar to how we get maybe outraged about some of the stuff the left does, but in their little bubble, you also have to understand, Carl, that you have the media elite there as well, because these are from the media people, the ABC, like Carl, and they see themselves as on a different plane than us. So it's like,
sophisticated and intelligent, of course. We're just mere mortals.
We're just mere mortals, and Carl, he's gonna win this award, and how dare he, and he should be on the plantation with us, following the rules exactly how we are, and all this kind of nonsense, right? And these are people who are actually rule breakers themselves. Like, the issue with Lattouf was that she was talking about, things to do with the protests, and she was advocating for different things around Gaza and Palestine, taking very personal political views to the audience. And what difference is the thing that Carl is doing right now? Nothing really. He's talking to someone. He's doing, a style of journalism that's modern in the podcast sense. But what's he done wrong? He's interviewed some guy, and the guy shared his views. Carl barely said anything in the interview. So this is a part of journalism, to talk to people that you don't necessarily agree with and to hear from them. But they want to live in a world where they don't hear from the people they don't like. So they don't want to hear from Tommy Robinson whatsoever, because it's Tommy Robinson. And this is ridiculous. You know, we interview people who are dictators, people who have been on death row are interviewed, people who are, you know, done all manner of things throughout their lives are interviewed. Just because you've been involved in something shady or some problem doesn't mean that the news might not find it worthy to talk to you, especially Tommy Robinson right now, with everything that's happening in the UK. You know, Keir Starmer resigning, the fact that Tommy Robinson and people like him in the UK do have influence in terms of the cultural issues that are taking place right now. So why wouldn't we want to hear from Tommy Robinson in Australia? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why shouldn't we hear from Tommy Robinson? You know, Anthony Lattouf will probably have no issues if someone in the ABC interviewed a leader of Hamas, because they'll be like, oh, we're hearing about what's happening in Gaza, you know, free Gaza. So they'll be happy for us to hear from the leader of Hamas. And that's what people have to realize when you listen to these people talking. It's literally just based on their ideological worldview. And the right, again, doesn't have that. I don't really care who the lefties interview. Like, I've never really looked at who's coming into the country, who's a lefty, and what views they have, because I don't really care. Unless they're, of course, a terrorist and they're on some ban, you know, some sort of terrorist group that we've banned. They shouldn't be coming. But otherwise, I don't really care about the things that they want to talk about amongst themselves. Who cares? But they really do care when we hear from other people they don't agree with, because they're worried. They're worried that just maybe 2 or 3 people from their side might listen to Tommy Robinson and be like, actually, he makes a lot of sense. You know, that's what they're terrified of, people hearing different ideas.
Yeah, 100%. And at the moment, I am rereading this. I don't know if you've read it. This is Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Is that reflected? I can't remember if it mirrors my thing. The Gulag Archipelago. And what happens, in the Soviet Union when there was dissenters or people speaking out of turn is they put them in the gulags, right? I honestly do think if it were possible, that's exactly where these people would have put us during COVID. I mean, we made jokes of it. But when you hear, say, like a Jan Fran or Antoinette or Abby or Hannah or any of them, right, they are so perturbed by anyone having any opinion outside of their echo chamber that their instinct is to shut it down, wipe it off the internet, censor you, block you, or hell, have you cancelled and deplatformed. That's their objective, because it's so unconscionable that there would be anyone outside their worldview. And it actually doesn't help them, right? Because it radicalizes people. I mean, we see this in 1984. We see this in a whole host of historical books. You know, when you tell people they can't think something, when you tell people what they believe is wrong and you gaslight them, they rebel. We know this. And then this is what I said in a reel yesterday. You know, I was talking about Hannah. The latest thing from the left is like, how is there a rise in one nation? How? It makes no sense. It must be bots. That was the Green senator yesterday. We're all bots, guys. We're not. I'm AI. Ooh. That's why I glitch every now and then. You know, to them, it's unconscionable that there's this many people that would support one nation. I'm like, well, this is what happens when you silence people, because you've actually only ever heard a very small part of the conversation. And this also happens on the right now. We're seeing this a lot with people on the right who are fracturing and going, you know what, I'm not listening to that person. You and I cop that all the time. Oh, they're under the thumb of this person. They're getting money from that person. Don't listen to them. I'm like, okay. I think we're all having a discussion here. Like, I'm not saying agree with me all the time, but the more you limit people being able to engage in discussions, the more you push them to the fringe. And I'll use the NSN as a really good example here. I don't believe the NSN should be deplatformed in any way, shape or form. I don't think they should be locked out of speaking. I think they should have their political party. Let their ideas be heard. I reject their ideas. I don't like their ideas, but I don't like that we're saying, nope, you can't speak, because you know what that's going to do? That's going to push them to the fringe. And you know what happens when people are on the fringe? It becomes cool. People want to join it. People want to hear it. People become curious. And I'm telling you now, blocking those guys off social media and deplatforming them is the best recruitment strategy. I guarantee their numbers are going up. And you guys, I know there's some of them in the comments right now. You guys can let me know if I'm right. I don't want to see anyone deplatformed. I really do believe in the battle of the ideas. And this is why I'm a big fan of podcasts myself. I really like talking to people. And I find, I don't know if you get this, Rukshan, people keep trying to put me in a category. Is she conservative? Is she libertarian? Is she a closet lefty? This is what happens when you have nuanced discussion. You can't pigeonhole me. I move around on some issues. Some things I'm ultra conservative on, like crime, right? I'm like, Nayab Bukele, lock him up, that's me. But on other issues, I'm like, hang on, there's a little bit more nuance there. I don't know if I agree with that. The more we prohibit people from engaging in political discussions, the harder it is to see where people actually sit. Because, of course, people engaged in discussions behind closed doors. I mean, it's what happened in the USSR. It didn't fall because we penetrated them. It fell because of themselves, right? And I think the lefties are getting a sweet little taste of that now. And they're all shocked, like, how is this happening? I'm like, because you silenced everyone and you don't have a good temperature gauge to be able to tell how people feel.
Yeah. Look, I think there's a lot of truth to that for sure. The thing on the NSN and the White Australia Party, I agree with you broadly in terms of we need to have these ideas tested in public, and if people vote for them, they vote for them. The issue really becomes with those groups is that, there's certain individuals in that group that call for, different types of violence or things that maybe things that interfere with other people that are in society as well. And there has to be a fine line that needs to be threaded with that. So I think there is a responsibility for governments and for leaders to obviously keep the community safe to some regard. You can't have complete anarchy and people going out there and inciting people to do things. So I think that's where these guys get into a bit of trouble. Like, they're not just running a mainstream political party. They're also they're also inciting various things, which gets them into that public spotlight, obviously with attention, and then gets them into a heated, back and forth with the authorities. And you found the state has come down really hard on them and pushed, and they're also pushing back through legal avenues. And that is a fight I think we've got to leave to the courts to see what happens there.
I agree.
But I do broadly agree, though, that these ideas should be tested in the public, that we shouldn't be banning political parties, that we shouldn't be, stopping people from gathering and having ideas that are somewhat controversial. But at the same time, like, I wouldn't want a group of ISIS people to gather in Australia because we have political free speech. Yeah. Right? They're a banned terrorist organization. I wouldn't want a faction of ISIS using our laws because, we're kind of everyone. Anyone can do whatever they want. They can have their gatherings and start a political party. So there are certain limits that we have to understand that exist. But if people aren't breaking the law, if they're not doing anything wrong, then we should respect their right to form a political party. But I understand where the law can be used by governments in a way that is not how the law was designed to be used. So there is a bit of that happening as well. So I'm personally not sympathetic towards them because I have my own run-ins with them, and there's obviously issues personally there. But as a individual that's looking at it as a bigger picture thing, I get that argument. But for the left, they're so used to bullying people and getting their way for a long time, and that's really changed as the public has changed as well. And people just aren't there, Carl. Like, the mood of the nation is just not where the left is at. Like, their left wing, it's just not cutting through to people, because when they go back home and they look at their bank balances and what's happening at work and what's happening at their children's schools, they're like, what these people are saying sounds crazy. So more people are actually just coming to terms with the fact that these people are unhinged. Like the Frans and the Antina Latoufs and stuff, the things they're saying. It's unhinged from the real world, and that's why they're having a real hard time right at the moment understanding why people are gravitating towards One Nation, because One Nation is just really just talking common sense, and a lot of people have common sense as a default.
Found Hope, we're going to come back to your comment in a second. I've seen that you've put 2 super chats, and I think that's worth having a chat about in 2 seconds, so please don't think I'm not going to address it. But just to follow on what you're saying, I think there's a distinction between political views and political violence, and obviously political violence of any form, whether left or right, is unacceptable. If you're jeopardizing someone's safety, I'll use the example of the violent protests. If you're destroying property, if you're going around graffitiing things, if you're going around breaking windows, setting off flares and stuff like that, and you're disruptive to the peace, then absolutely there should be consequences to that. I'm big on law and order, and I'm big on having deterrence and incentives for people to not be hostile. And when it comes to the other side of the fence, the NSN guys, whatever, if they're causing chaos, if they're obstructing people from going about their business. If they're causing harm, absolutely, they should feel the full brunt of the law. I just don't like how it's and to be clear, I'm not defending anyone here. I'm merely looking at this from a policy point of view. You've got the far right. They exist. They're real. We know that. You also have the far radical left. They're allowed to operate. These pro-Palestinian protesters, these agitators, these truly destructive people, they're able to go and, write death to Australia, burn our flag. Nothing happens to them. And then on the far right, I mean, they're not even allowed to group together in public or have a political party. I'm not defending the NSN, to be clear, but I'm saying it's double standards and it sets an unfair advantage, because what's going to happen is the pendulum goes like this, right? Because people can sense that. People get frustrated. And like I said before, it's a great recruitment strategy for the NSN, because everyone's like, hang on a minute, this isn't fair. And I think
I would say there's probably nothing the government wants more than a White Australia party to be registered,
100%.
and for all the members to send in the details to the VEC to get confirmed. I mean, Asia would have a list of all the people sympathetic to that cause. So it's going to be a hard one. So even if they register, like, people, they will have to give all their details and their names and addresses. And again, that shouldn't be used as a threat against them. But I'm just saying how this government works and how these things work. They're up against it. And I get it, Carlz. The left do get away with all of this. They're kind of protected. Antifa are probably 10 times worse in their behavior, what I've seen the NSN do.
Yeah.
And they're unashamed in their behavior, and they're protected by the governments, especially here in Victoria, who turn a blind eye to what Antifa are doing. But what I do find with Antifa and these Islamist groups and so on that act, use their mosques and stuff to recruit and spread extremism, they're a lot smarter than what the NSN as operators. They work within the laws most of the times. And they tread a fine line in a manner which doesn't get them in front of law enforcement eyes in a way that they can be dismantled, if that makes sense. Whereas NSN, again, they want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to do both. And again, for these causes, it doesn't really work that way. Like, put on something like what Thomas Sewell's doing now. He's wearing suits and he's talking like a politician into the camera. Like, No, I'm just saying that's a far cry from running around, topless with a bunch of boys doing Zig Heils and celebrating Hitler's birthday and making all sorts of manifesto type threats about what's going to happen in Australia in the future. Like, it's a different thing. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like, if you don't want the attention, if you want to have your political views and your political party, be smart about it. Like, there's a lot of right-wing parties who have extreme right-wing views in the US, for instance. They're not outlawed per se. It's just that they carry it out in a manner which is within the bounds of the law. Like, you have to be a smart operator if you want to get your message out there. And these guys are just obsessed with their Hitlerism, and they've been unable to do that. And now they're finding out what happens when you go down that path. And I don't know if things change for them with this particular law case and what happens, because what's really happening there is not so much the White Australia Party. The NSN got banned, they disbanded, and are they now trying to use a political party to regroup? That's what's going to come up. And it's more than just the White Australia Party being banned. There's more going on there that meets the eye in the public, for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I think, given the vacuum on social media, it is pushing people to further extremes. And we're seeing this right now with the discussion around monoculture. Obviously, Pauline Hanson said something at the press club, and this is something that the mainstream media has grabbed onto. And it appears that people have deliberately misconstrued what Pauline said. And all your usual Labor suspects and your Teals and your Greens are outraged by it. We've got Claire O'Neill talking about how proud we are because we're multicultural. And then yet, when you have a look at social media, I mean, I'm not on X anywhere near as often as some people. I check X every now and then. But certainly from what I see on Instagram, which is mostly where I hang out, people understand now that we have completely strayed from our national identity, and they've removed patriotism, and now we're being told to accept this new version of the country because we always had it. And what do you mean? We're all racist. And I think you're finding people going, hang on a minute, and I refer to your silent majority. Obviously, people like yourself and I were outspoken about it. But now I'm seeing regular people who are like, hang on a minute, this is not what I stand for at all. I love Australia. And I don't want this massive influx of people coming here and telling me that what I know and how I grew up is inherently wrong. And so the more the mainstream media and the left double down on how evil the term monoculture is, I actually think, again, it's the Streisand effect. It's making people engage in a discussion. You know, whether it's about the Islamists who are coming here, whether it's about the massive influx of people who don't assimilate to our culture, I think this is something that people have been wanting to talk about. And now it's finally like, well, hang on a minute, we can talk about it now because it's mainstream, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely a good discussion to have. And I think that's one of the major effects of what Pauline Hanson has done, is brought it to that spotlight as a discussion. The terms themselves, I don't think end up really mattering at the end of the day. It really depends on the direction of the country.
Yeah,
you know, it's not going to be this thing where one nation win and then the next day we're a monoculture. Like, that's not how this works. This is something that takes decades to change something like this. But if you're fighting for this, and if you're on the same wavelength, then naturally changes happen within society. One of the biggest things that we can do, really, the way that we know things have changed, Carlz, is probably the better way to put it, is that we have issues when we celebrate Australia Day today, for instance. We have issues with the Australian flag. Now, if you go back 20 years, it was pretty much unheard of. You just had Australia Day parades, and it was just normal, right?
So the Triple J 100,
Yeah, so it was just normals, right? So when it goes back to that, which I believe it'll just become a normal thing again. That's when the culture has changed. And that's how you can test if you're heading more towards a monoculture or not, if that makes sense. It's not really a switch that people are talking about. It's like something that, that she's going to come in, Pauline Hanson, and it's going to, it's going to be like a thing that she ticks, and there's all of a sudden we're a monoculture. No, that's really not what's going on here. It is really a discussion around what it means to be an Australian identity, and the future of this country.
Yeah.
And it's true. Political operators like Albanese and the others are, saying half truths about the past in this country. Or, we've always been a multicultural country, and it's not really true. We haven't really been a multicultural country. Yes, in retrospect, we can say when the settlers came, there were Aboriginal people here, Indigenous people, and then technically, different cultures existed.
Yeah.
But the prevailing way of Australian life was centered around British traditions, or British heritage. And that was the case for many decades. And it's only recently become this multicultural melting pot. It wasn't even like that at the start when they first started multiculturalism, if that makes sense. Yeah. It's only become like that very recently, where now you have other cultures, dominating or taking precedence. Like, I don't remember when I was growing up seeing Diwali festivals, not Diwali festivals, but like Woolworths or Safeways back then when I was young, having, Diwali signs, right? Or having Chinese New Year signs. Yeah, like that would have been like a bit like that didn't really happen. Like, I remember going to like different festivals when I was a young kid that were cultural, but it was just like for that community. It wasn't pushed on everyone else. Whereas today it's like, hey guys, it's Chinese New Year's, and all the supermarkets and all the shops have their Chinese New Year branding, and it's like, where are you? Are you in Australia or are you in China? Same thing for Diwali, same thing for Eid. You sense it with those cultural festivals and religious holidays. They really push them out there as well.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like that. Now you can, look at that and be like, well, that's just a sign of the times. There's a lot more of that population, and we have to cater to that population. And that's really, I think, where the discussion comes down to. Do we cater to the people that have come here and change the culture of Australia to adapt to them, and let that run as the main thing? Or do we say, actually, you're coming to Australia, you're coming here for a reason, right? Usually for a better life, to escape those cultures you left behind. Why are we not adapting to the Australian culture that you actually came for in the first place?
Yeah.
And that is a discussion. That is a discussion we need to be having. And everyone's obviously making about racism, all this kind of stuff. I support a monoculture. I put up a photo the other day with Pauline Hanson saying, I'm for a monoculture. I want to see a monoculture. And that is not to say, Carlz, that you can't have other cultures. You can have different religions. You can eat all the different foods you want. I'm having dumplings right now. I'm sure the dumplings won't go away, guys. You can still get your chicken curries and your butter curries and your monoculture. None of those things go away. All it means is that we as a people, wherever we're from, whichever background we're from, our focus is, the Australian culture that we all create together, which is around, shared values, whether it's, respecting each other, whether it's the values like, patriotism that we can have, and just understanding that we're all here for the same reason and not to have our different communities and different cultures. And a lot of these people, actually, I'm ending up like Topher, you're talking a lot. A lot of these people that are coming to Australia, they actually come from countries which are monocultures themselves. So immigrants understand the concept of a monoculture. They come from quite successful monocultures, really. So it's not like a brand new thing that's been forced on people. It's actually a default position of many societies. And it's something that does work and that can work, especially in a country like Australia. We can have a monoculture here without friction, without having ethnic wars and things like this. We have the capability to do that right now. If it gets out of hand, probably not, but right now we have the capability to create a society where we are all Australian and we have a shared culture that, there's something that combines us together as Australians.
I totally agree with you. And I've said this all along, and this is where, I'll probably get some people offside and other people be like, oh, I can get along with that. But the way I view Australia, we're resource rich, we've got a huge landmass and such a small population for what we have. There is no reason we are not a superpower. We are not inherently wealthy and successful and innovative. But it seems like the powers that be, whether that's our politicians, whether that's the decision makers, the policy makers, they want to de-incentivize people from achieving anything. And I guess this is what my gripe is, right? For those who haven't seen me talk before, I'm not overly political. I was never particularly political. I became radicalized during COVID. But I've always been someone who really champions meritocracy. I've always wanted to be the best I can be, not the best in the world. I never want to leave anything on the table. And I'll give you my idea of hell. Someone told me this a long time ago, and this is something that I live by. I got told that the definition of hell is facing a version of yourself that you never grew into, realizing how much potential you left on the paper, right? And that to me, I'm like, holy shit, you're telling me I could have done all this stuff and I didn't because I didn't take risk or I didn't put myself out there. And the reason I say that is Australians seem to feel the opposite. We deter people from success. We chastise people for doing anything that's outside the norm. We make them feel like aliens. And then when they achieve material wealth, we demonize them. I bring up Adrian Portelli all the time. He's a perfect example. He's a boy from the West who's become a billionaire. How is that not an Aussie success story? And people go, oh, it's through the loopholes. Of course you do. You're going to find any reason you can to demonize this man for being successful, who's now employing a whole host of Aussies, who's contributing to the economy, who's has a bee on his bonnet now with LMCT plus petrol, and now he's doing supermarkets. But now he's evil. And so what I want Australia to be is using our resources and building this country up and incentivizing people. If they want to come here, I'm not anti anyone coming here. What I'm anti is us taking in people from the third world who are going to just drain our resources because they're not going to contribute. And there's a whole host of these people, whether they're on Centrelink, NDIS or whatnot. I'm not heartless. We should be able to look after people, but let's look after the Aussies who are hard done by. Once we've got them sorted, maybe then we can start worrying about people in the third world. But other than that, if there's people who are like absolute freaks, who are coding geniuses or software geniuses or engineers, doctors and engineers, if there's people who are truly exceptional, I want them in this country. We need those people because right now, Aussies aren't particularly wanting to push that needle right now. And I think that's a cultural thing, whether it's tall poppy or this acceptance of mediocrity. And so this is the way I look at immigration. I'm not anti people coming here by any stretch of the imagination. I couldn't give a fuck where you come from, what color your skin is, what your cultural background is. I don't care. If you're an awesome person and you're going to contribute to this country and make Australia, the country that you're migrating to, the best on earth, I say bring it on, because there's a whole host of people that we can send over there. I mean, take Abby Chatfield. See you later. Go. You know what I mean? It's like, I want people here who love this country, who care about this country. And I'm sick of being told by actual Australians, and Topher makes this point all the time, and I agree with it. The people who are ruining this country are all white. Anthony Albanese, Scott Morrison, Kevin Rudd, Julia Gillard. They're all white names, and they're all, pushing us into down a road that we don't want to go. you know, so this whole like, oh, you know, it's racism and all that, I reject that in its entirety.
Yeah.
It's such a stupid, simplistic way of viewing it. Monoculture, in my opinion, should be in Australia that's fucking sensational. We are outrageously talented and innovative. We've got the grind and the hustle, and everyone in this country is fucking like, yes, let's make this country a fucking amazing thing. I'm about to say make Australia great again.
Make Australia great again, yeah.
But you know, and I want that from Australia, not this like, oh, everything's racist, everyone's against us, you know, like this oppression, you know, bloody colonizers. Oh, shut up. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great to have definitely an aspirational nation again. And look, Australia still bats above their average. Wherever you see them represented, I think, you know, we're still up there amongst everyone else in the world. And you see that most prominently in sports, obviously. That's what we see most prominently. But I think even in different sectors, we are world leaders when it comes to the innovations that happen through Australia. So we're still up there, but overall, we have societal issues that's caused, you know, a lot of people to feel downtrodden, to feel like they need to blame people. I think that's one of the biggest issues, Carl's. Like, I don't necessarily blame immigrants. I think I talked to you about this last time. I don't like to blame the immigrants for what's happening right now, because I get why people want to come here. But I will say, I think I'm a lot more heartless than you. I would cut down specifically a lot of immigration in terms of, even if awesome people, whatever, I think we just got to cut down stuff very dramatically. I'm for that. I think we need to have, even within this country itself, we have created somewhat of a socialist welfare state where we're over reliant on government. And people, you know, when they talk about this immigration thing right now, they're saying, well, we don't want immigrants here because we don't want the government to look after us. I'm hearing a lot of things like this, like they should be doing stuff for us, which I understand that concept. But again, we're becoming more over reliant on the government supporting people. Which I think is problematic. You need to have people who want to build things, who are aspirational, who want to create wealth and entrepreneurial, create jobs. So we need that spirit back, which I think is also missing right now in the conversation. Which is why I liked actually what Gina was saying that day about, you know, that like she got a bit of slack for what she was talking about. But it's true. We have a lot of unused land in different parts of Australia. It's somewhat of an advantage that we have in this country. So if we can use that, this is an example, but use that in a way to incentivize companies to come build things here and create massive industries in Australia, that's a good thing. So that's how we've got to be thinking. So yes, it's about stopping immigration, but it's also about internally as a nation, you know, being people that want to be a great, successful country, because there's many other countries who are a lot smaller than Australia in terms of resources who manage to do a lot better than us, which is crazy to think about. Like Singapore is a great example, for instance. They don't have all the resources that we have. They have nothing compared to what we have. And they've managed, you know, something remarkable in that small space that they have. And there's many other examples that I can give of that. To your other comment around, well, it's all the white people's fault. I don't want to just go out and say that. I don't necessarily want to say that. You know, white people in Australia still make up majority of the population, so you're going to find a lot more white people who have, you know, left-wing views. But it does present a problem when you have a country where you don't have really, you know, assimilation, and an immigrant, for instance, as an example, is presented with two white people, and they tell them opposite things about what it means to be in this country. And I always put this question now to people when I have this discussion, you know, which white person do you listen to? You know, which version of the white person's view on what Australia means is the one that the immigrant should listen to? Like, are they wrong if they listen to you, or are they wrong if they listen to, you know, Jan Fran or something and her vision of Australia? Like, which version does the immigrant listen to? And people aren't really understanding what that means as well, I think, because it's not easy. It's not easy. I don't think it's easy for an immigrant that comes here that really like loves Australia. They're like, okay, I really want to go there. I want to work hard and do all these things. And they land and they end up in some, you know, labor enclave. And then the community services officer comes around and says, hey, you know what? Don't really worry about getting a job. You can just sign up for this NDIS thing and they'll give you this. Yeah. And like, you know what I mean? Like, people then fall into those traps, and it sucks. Like, even the people that are coming here that might have ambition end up being slaves to the state as well. So it's this whole mentality around everything. But we can do something about immigration, and we can have policy changes that can change the direction and stop things and slow things down. So I'm all for policy changes. Just saying something, just saying send them all back, millions must go, yelling into a camera doesn't actually do anything, right? Doesn't change a thing. You have to get people. You have to get people into power. You have to have policies that come through and get changed. And you really, honestly, you have to have a mandate. You can't just win an election by one seat. A party like One Nation or a coalition have to win by like 10, 20 seats to have a mandate to make dramatic change in this country. Because if you just win by a couple of seats, it's not really a mandate, and you're going to have trouble getting things through. So at the end of the day, yelling and blaming people is not really going to change much. You have to think in a much smarter way about fixing this country.
Yeah, and look, we have a long way to go, and I think it's not too late for Australia. I see a lot of this sort of doomsday stuff on X. We're stuffed, we're fucked, whatever. I mean, we can see what's going on in the UK. We can see what's going on in France. I don't think. Look, I might.
I've been saying that for I'm just saying. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No,
I've been hearing people say that for like the last 5-6 years. What's happening in the UK. Trump during 2016, he was saying, "Oh, look what's happening in Europe." Like in 5 years from now, the politician will be saying, "Oh, look what's happening in the UK." So it really means all it means is like we're just kind of becoming enraged by things and not really changing the direction, right? We want to be more. We want to be more serious about actually making a change.
We want to be proactive, and that's why I'm a big believer in being able to invite more people into the discussion, even though if you don't like what they're talking about. We need those robust discussions, which is what the left keeps saying. We need to have robust discussions, and I encourage that. But on the migration thing, firstly, I do think we absolutely have to slow it down just immediately. We need to take care of what we've already got here and figure things out. And I think blanket approaches to things like everyone's like millions must go. I've seen that in the comments a few times here. I'm like, yeah, but think about the infrastructure of that. Think about what that would take and re-migrating people. Like you're talking about huge amounts of government resource to do that. And I don't know if people know this. The government actually already does that. And I know this, and I have to be careful how I say this. I may or may not have a friend who does exactly this. They go around the country and they pluck people and take them back out to Nauru. And that's actually happening, right? And that's happening right now under Albanese, I can assure you. That's about probably as much as I'm allowed to say. But, I told you nothing. But, there's an incentive for people right now to come to Australia because it's a free-for-all, right? Like they know there's, a plethora of options for them over here, and then they incentivize their family to come over. And I understand why people who are born here, who grew up here, who have been here for a long time get frustrated. I totally understand that. And this is where things get really jarring in the political conversation, is because if you dare even acknowledge that perspective on the left side of politics, they'll shut you down as a racist. And this is the problem I have, is allow people to say their piece. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to then take that and be like, well, that's the doctrine now. I'll give you an example. The Gina Reinhart thing when she was talking about Israel, to be really clear, I've only seen the clips of it. I've not actually looked at it any more than what I saw on social media. I saw what she said. I didn't get the full context, whatever. But Gina said that. It's not policy. Pauline Hanson hasn't said we're doing that. And that's the part that I get frustrated by. I'm like, okay, Gina put an idea out there. And guess what? We all get to say, no, we don't like it. Or yes, we want it, whatever. She talked, I think, also about inviting SpaceX to launch rockets. And I'm like, fuck yeah, bring that shit here. I want to see some rockets. Do you know what I mean? So that's the beautiful part of having this discussion. When people put out ideas and you don't like them, you're able to reject them. But if we keep silencing people and disengaging, I don't think that's helpful. And where I'm really fearful on the right now, I see this a lot. Oh, I thought you were one of the good ones. Nah, Carly, I'm out. And I'm like, okay, so that one thing you disagree with me on, that means everything else I'm now categorically wrong. It's not, it's a simpleton way to have a discussion. But gosh, I see this a lot on social media. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, it's all over social media at the moment. Everyone wants to fit people into their own little category of exactly what they align with. I disagree with a lot of people. I just, I don't really make it a big deal, but I still listen to some of the things they say because I'm like, what are they saying? Can I learn something from this, or why is their approach a little bit different? I think it's not good not to just completely disengage. and shut people out. So yeah, I'm not into this whole like airport thing. Hey, I'm unfollowing you now because you said one thing about this issue that I don't agree with, so I'm out now. It's ridiculous. It's
I don't care. I'm out.
Well, don't tell me, but like it's just like, come on, like this one issue, like you're not gonna get in life 100% of the time everyone that agrees on every single thing the same way. It's just it's almost impossible, right? Unless maybe you're a strict monoculture, let's say, maybe that's possible there. But in general, you're not going to get people that see eye to eye on every single political issue. So you can't just be turning on people. Obviously, we've had a lot of divisive things like the whole Israel Gaza thing, and that's turned people upside down in terms of their loyalties. But in general terms, most things people will not 100% see eye to eye on. So I get why it happens. I just think like you don't have to be so petty about it all.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I was going to bring up another story. I'm just trying to find it. I saved it. And it's sort of along the lines of what we're talking about, how, it's a flat out rejection and we need to, was it Claire O'Neill? I'm trying to find it. Where is it? I save all these things in my bookmarks and I can never find it. But I mean, it remains to be said that Australians are doing it tough right now. A lot of people out there are living paycheck to paycheck. Some are, living out and doing it rough. And they're not invited to the conversation. They're told that if, they want to talk about what their needs are and how they need support from the Australian government, they're silenced and told they're racist because we need to take in people from, the Middle East and whatever. And I think that's why a lot of people are now turning to One Nation. I really do. I think there's a lot of people who are just like, you know what? No one's representing me. No one's addressing how I'm doing it tough. And I'll give you an example, actually. This is a sort of a different segue. But Triple J's hack, I'm trying to bring it up. They posted something about Albo not knowing about the price of housing in Marrickville. I believe that's where that's his electorate. And it was kind of it was interesting. And I want to bring this up because I think this is really good. Where is it? I've got to find the bloody thing now. Oh God, these guys post a lot, don't they? So it was basically, it was, I guess they would call it an ambush of Albo, where he was, basically not able to name the price of things in Marrickville. And now I'm not going to be able to find this bloody video, am I? And essentially, I made a comment on it. I just said, Albo's getting, here it is. He's getting $700,000 per annum. To him, $1 million condo isn't very expensive, is it? It's like a couple of years' worth of his wage. And the left, my gosh, did they come for me? And I just thought it'd be worthwhile reading the comments because this is what we're up against. So let me just pull this up, guys. It is this one here. All right, let's just watch this video.
$1 million. Do you think that should come down? It's nearly $1 million. Do you think that's affordable for a young person to be able to buy a unit in Marrickville?
Well, it depends on what their income is. It depends on all of their status, which is there.
Do you know the median price of a unit in your own electorate, Prime Minister? And do you know how much that's sort of grown over recent years and the prices that young people are facing trying to buy a house in, say, Marrickville?
What I know is that prices in Marrickville have increased substantially. And right throughout my area, but right throughout the whole country, that has occurred. But what we are doing here is I talked to someone last weekend who was able to be successful at an auction that previously they'd almost given up on. That's a fantastic thing. That's what these reforms are aimed at. Doing.
They paid. You didn't.
That's what they're aimed at. Well, it's not to me to disclose how much individuals pay for homes.
It's nearly $1 million. Do you think that should come down? It's nearly $1 million.
Just cuts her off. Next. So that happened a couple of days ago. But let's have a quick look at the comments here because I think this is quite telling. So my comment was just Albo's salary is just shy of $700K per annum. To him, it is affordable. Ask him the price of milk, butter, or what the average energy bill is. He doesn't know, nor does he care. His policies benefit his mates, and we all get poorer as his salary rises. Like, factually accurate. I didn't say anything that was wrong there. But wowie, I got a lesson in economics. I've got to find that one. But you know, these are the lefties coming out. Carly, he literally just, he's just stopped housing prices from rising and it nearly ended his career. Stop complaining, you whinge merchant. And I'm like, is that why my rent's just gone up $80 a week, which happened last week? And then, of course, it's the evil landlords. It's right-wing misinformation. But my favorite one was, where is it? It was the great economist. I've got to find the comment because it was just too good not to share. But I mean, you guys can read these comments on the screen. Here we go. Troisy, you're obviously not economically savvy. You're getting your misinformation from the right-wing media news. Our economy is directly affected by global economics. It's got nothing to do with government spending. That's just a complete B-up. Stop repeating the lies. And guys, I've got to tell you, I didn't realize how wrong I was. I did not know that it had nothing to do with government spending. Did you?
No.
And this is kind of what we're up against. So when we're talking about these people here, these rusted on Labor supporters, they just cannot see it. They don't care to see it. Albo's their saviour. And of course, they're just attacking me in the comments. But how do you have discussions with these people who are just vehemently opposed to seeing rational discussion? I didn't say anything outrageous, but apparently to them it was.
There's really no way that you can have a rational discussion with these people. I'm like, Carly, I don't know what you're trying to do, to be honest.
Like walk into the lion's den and then.
It's pretty. I've never really convinced someone on the opposite side in an online discussion via comments. Like, it's not ever really happened until this affects them, which some of these people, weirdly, like it affects them as well. It's like they're going through Stockholm syndrome. Like, they're probably struggling themselves, but they're finding other things to blame. Like, it's the world economy. It's it's Iran. It's this and that. And there is some truth to these type of complaints of, obviously, that we're interlinked to the rest of the world. But like you said, Australia is a unique country with a lot of resources. Like, there's arguments to be made that should we be spending a lot of our time and money and investments on a lot of this green energy stuff that we're doing? Like, what's the cost of doing that? Why can't we just have, free power? You know what I mean? Like, why not? Why can't we just
millionaires?
Why aren't we getting a bit of income from maybe selling some of the resources that they're sending overseas? Like, why isn't that being put back into the people to be able to do things? Now, I get there's different arguments around why that would be a bad thing, whatever it is, but like, obviously governments can have an impact on this country. It can be an internal thing. Like, we can do policy changes to impact what's happening in this country. The housing thing, unfortunately, I think is almost like, if they're talking about the house prices in Marrickville coming down, like, what, should it be cheaper for the people that are there? Well, maybe it can be with some government interventions. But who's that going to impact? It's going to impact the people that already own those houses. They're going to lose up. And there's a cascading effect. Like, it's not really like this easy solution. It's very tough. So I do feel for the government, because there's not one easy solution for this. It does take a lot of suffering, I think, to get out of something like we're in right now. Yeah. But having said that, if we just drop some of this renewable nonsense that we waste our time on, if we do, cap immigration, if we start maybe building like just more suburbs and more houses, those kind of things. Again, I'm not an economist. I'm just saying these things. Maybe we can do something dramatic. Maybe we just need to have the will to do that, and not just rely on economic, changes over generations to, equalize what's happened in the past. Like, that's kind of what they're doing. So I don't know if that'll be, work hard for people in the long run. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because when I look at either the Greens, the Teals, or Labor talking, about Pauline Hanson, she said something really important in her speech, and it was right around the time that Get Up put the banner down, and she was talking about young children who were going hungry and, who were struggling, and families and people doing it tough. And that was the moment David Shiraz was like, yeah, now let's get them. They're talking about the poor people. Quick, change the subject. And there seems to be this level of contempt for an Australian person who's doing it rough, who's sleeping rough, who's, unhoused or unable to get into the market. And, they're like, no, this is the right way. And I saw a comment also on that reel where the guy's like, Carly, house prices are more than fine as they are. You just need to get richer. And I'm like, I'm on it. I'll get on it, mate. No worries. And I think, for a lot of these politicians, they always talk in abstractions. It's always the person, and the example they use doesn't actually exist. They never point to a real person. It's always like, oh, the people over here that need our help, and it's this version that they are helping, but really everyone is kind of just getting little pieces of help from the government. And I personally am just like, please get the government out of my life. But, when we see like Claire O'Neill or Jim Chalmers talking about the capital gains tax, it's going to help people. It's going to help people. Well, the people are blatantly rejecting it. The people are telling you they don't want it. And yet you're like, nah, we're going to make a secret deal with the Greens and we're going to ram it through. And now, guys, guess what? It's even harder for you to get ahead. Yeah. Do you think this will be the end of Albo? Do you think he's going to have a Keir Starmer moment?
I don't know. Albo does seem a lot more resilient than Keir Starmer, especially within his own party. I haven't really seen the fractures within the Labour Party that have, come out with knives for him as of yet. Whereas with Keir Starmer, you always saw those fractures there, and he's just had to fall on his sword because he's almost had no choice. They were going to knife him. So Albo, when I looked at, I saw some the betting markets for the upcoming election. I know it's still a while away, but Labour was still set to win in 2028. Yeah. So if you got a leader that, he's unpopular right now, but in 2 years maybe you can win an election, they might not get rid of him, and as sad as it sounds for people watching at home, right now the odds are still in Albo's favor to be in government again come 2028. So there's a lot to do in between that time, for sure.
How do you see the November election going?
That's definitely becoming more interesting. Jacinta Allen is someone that you're actually seeing those fractures. Her leadership is not very clear. She is struggling. She's trying to obviously tighten the team around her, and look, what she's doing is literally campaigning. I have this in the mail today, from Labour. They're sending out pamphlets and stuff like this, and this says Labour's providing half-price public transport. Now, it costs a lot to print these and send these out, right? But this is all a part of convincing people here in the city. I'm in the city. Start thinking about Labour, start voting for us. So that's what Victoria does when it comes to elections. The Labour Party, they start giving away a lot of things and doing things to be visible. It's all a show. They know that they just have to win, the election some manner. So they'll do whatever it takes to win. Similar to how Daniel Andrews ran the last election. I think he was always never going to finish his term.
Yeah.
But they knew what needed to be done to ensure that they would have a Labour government under Jacinta Allen, and that was for Daniel Andrews to run with all the people in the state that for some weird reason support him. Jacinta Allen doesn't really have that same magnetic pull that Andrews has with that voter base of Labour. So she's on a bit more of a shaky ground there. So I think it could be very interesting. It does look like potentially if there was a change of government, it would be a coalition government, not necessarily one nation, but coalition would have to, Jess Wilson would have to, talk with Pauline, pick up the phone, come through with some deal and actually, want to defeat the Labour government here in Victoria because they have been in power for such a long time.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's people voting in this upcoming election that have never known anything but a Labour government. I don't know how long they've been around for. Is it 12?
And I almost fear it's the better the devil you know. I mean, we've had a Labour government for almost 2 decades. There was a brief stint with Napthine. Is it Napthine or Bailey? I always forget which one's win.
I think it was Bailey. Ted Bailey.
Bailey, was it?
I can't remember now. That's how long it's been. Like I forgot. I remember Steve Bracks. I think he was Labour. I just don't remember these figures because all I've known for a long time now is Daniel Andrews, and now just like, that's how bad it is in Victoria.
Terrifying, isn't it? I think we've all got Stockholm syndrome from it. But it's going to be an interesting race, and I think what we're going to see as well is, the whole monoculture statement from Pauline. I think the mainstream media and the leaders, right? What's the word I'm trying to say? My mind has gone blank. Can you tell?
Well, they're gearing up for it. Is that what you mean? Like that's going to be a central issue.
Yeah, I think they saw that as an opportunity to dismantle One Nation. They were like, "Hey, here we go! Like, this is going to be the moment that we're going to turn people away from her." I think it did the opposite. Everyone was like, "Hang on a minute, wait, tell me more. I'm interested." So it does seem like, and I mean this with Carl, Pauline, everyone right now. The more people try and demonize someone, it actually seems to have the opposite impact, because I think people collectively are just so disenfranchised, they're disillusioned, they're resentful. And they're quite cynical as well. I think there's a lot of people who, don't think it's possible to save this country, and they're quite resentful of that. And then, of course, you've got a whole new voting bloc that's coming in to vote this year, Gen Z, or the tail end of Gen Z, who have been raised on nihilism. And I feel so sorry for some of Gen Z, right? Like, they've been indoctrinated that the world's ending, climate change, they'll never own a house, their life's over. And this voter bloc is about to enter another election cycle. So, I mean, it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think one thing I have noticed, on to touch on your first point around them making this multicultural monoculture thing an issue, and I've always predicted this for a long time now, that this is going to be a very racially charged election, November, and definitely when it comes to the federal election around these immigration issues. But what I've noticed is, Carl's, like, when I'm putting up posts now on social media, there's a lot more immigrants commenting on what I'm putting up, especially if it's related to Pauline Hanson. So I think they've been activated by Labor somehow. Like, they're paying a bit more attention to what's happening. Like, they've kind of come around to this fact that, Pauline Hanson's now here, One Nation. She's saying these things which the Labor people and the media is telling them is racist. And these people have, starting to lash out at me as well. So
the migrant community has been mobilized, you're saying, against Pauline?
I think slowly they're waking up to something where they've been, mobilized by Labor. I'm not saying like someone's gone out and said, "Hey, activate." I'm saying just be based on the media coverage around Pauline and the things that are being discussed. I am getting, people who are obviously, I know a lot of people who are migrants. Even in my DMs, they've reached out to me, like people from school and stuff, and be like, "Rukshan," like, especially when I put out stuff with Pauline Hanson, they're like, "Is this like, are you just like having some fun? Are you joking? Do you actually agree with her?" Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I wasn't getting that before. So people weren't really paying attention to this stuff, but they are now. So I think Labor's having their intended effect of making people fearful around what this debate actually means. And when they're talking about these things, Carl, I think people need to understand they're not really trying to reach Pauline Hanson voters per se. They're trying to reach people who are perhaps on the fence around some things. And more so, maybe even some of these migrant communities who might be thinking, the economics are so bad. We actually like what Pauline Hanson's saying. They're worried about that. So they want to get these people, obviously, the hell away from ever considering voting for One Nation. So they need to get this whole us. They need to get this whole us versus them thing happening in Australia more now. They need more divisiveness, more fighting amongst different racial things. And, the racist thing, the racial thing is going to, like you said, it's going to become a massive feature. And I think we haven't yet seen, where that all comes together. And there's going to be an event or, an incident or something like this. You know what I'm trying to say? There's going to be there's going to be some catalyst where this just all blows up. And becomes like front and center. That's coming.
I worry about that. We talk about psyops or paid opposition or, infiltrators and things like that. I mean, it's entirely possible something gets fabricated and we have a hate crime or some kind of, horrible incident that's there that happens and it unites everyone together. I mean, I would have thought Bondi did that. I mean, 15 people being murdered, I would have thought that was pretty unifying moment around the country, but it seemed to do the opposite. It seemed to make people double down. Last thing I think we should talk about, because it just happened today, the nurses, the Afghan nurses, and I can't remember the other one's name, they have had the video evidence thrown out of the court proceedings, which is obviously the key part of evidence. How do you feel about that?
It's again one of these things where it's just like these technical things in the law, and you wonder, like, really? Like, imagine some video captured some murder happening. You know what I mean? It was like, oh well, the consent wasn't there. Would they really regard that in that same way? I don't think so. So obviously, it's a choice. It's down to the interpretation of the judge that's hearing this, and they've decided for whatever reason that it's not in the public interest, even though this recording they're in a public place, like they're in the hospital, they're working. I'm pretty sure it's a public hospital. They're working in a public facing job, talking about killing patients that come to a public hospital. Like if there's ever a reason for public interest, I would thought that would meet the threshold of doing that. And again, then you have the whole fact that this guy's actually not even in Australia, the guy they're talking to. He's overseas. So jurisdictionally, like, it's not someone in Australia breaking the law by recording them. And then on top of all of that, Carlz, we have them actually engaging in an app where the whole purpose is you're going to be on video, being recorded or being talking to people in a public setting in some aspect.
It was
so it's all
literally
bullshit.
Yeah.
It's just bullshit. They're obviously very gleeful. I've seen the interviews with their lawyers and them, and they feel like they've gotten away with it all. And I just think it's disgraceful that this is where we are. Because if you listen to them and the things that they were saying, that is truly what they want to do and who they are. That's what they believe. Now, I'm not saying that they would do it, but this is kind of their attitude in that space. And it's disgraceful that they're getting away with this. I don't know who to blame. I don't know if it's the prosecutor's fault. I don't know. I feel like it's the judge's fault for interpreting in this way. This is a very. It's almost too obvious that this should have risen to the level where the judge could put aside those other considerations and taking this evidence.
And I think this is where, Tommy Robinson talks just to round out the discussion. Tommy Robinson talks about this a lot. The two-tiered justice system. It's rules for thee, not for me. And this is an example from it. And I think this is another moment that could radicalize people. You've got people who are blatantly saying, like you said, they're nurses in a public hospital saying that they're going to kill patients. And like you said, on the technicality of the law, it's been dismissed. And this is where people get offside with our justice system. It makes a mockery of it. This is people who are basically saying that they've either attempted murder or are going to commit murder, but we're not taking it seriously. It's almost like the hate preachers in the West who talk about committing jihad in Australia, and then it happens and they go, no, it wasn't that. And so, I hope this doesn't happen, to be clear. I'm not cheering this to happen, but should one of these then be implicated further down the line in some kind of attack, and whether it's murder or manslaughter or it's some kind of other, grievous bodily harm, whatever, do we then take it seriously? Do we then go back and go, maybe maybe we should have paid attention? And we know that because we're seeing that already with the way we treat youth crime in Victoria. They know they get out on bail. They know there's no consequences. They don't give a fuck. And so if we say to these people who are, I'm going to call them radicalized, they have extreme views. They hate a class of people or a race of people. And we're like, you know what? They were just having a chat. It's fine.
Yeah, there was no consent. They didn't know they were being recorded. So obviously, like, nothing bad happened there. Like, it's just like bullshit. It doesn't really pass the pub test. Obviously, the law is complicated. I do respect our legal system and the laws and all these kind of things. I understand, like, there is a possibility, for instance, if it's not done in a proper way, that they do get prosecuted. There can be a mistrial or something else, or an appeal. But you have to take those risks sometimes, I believe, as a community. And if in whatever instance, if those two individuals happen to be like, two NSN members or something like this saying the same thing, I think the judge would have made a different decision. So there is that. We have that inkling of a feeling, and that's probably what Tommy and what you're talking about, this two-tier feeling that we have in this nation, where it's different rules for different people. Like, seriously, they were just glorifying killing patients in a hospital, in a public hospital. Really? You're not going to admit that into evidence, the key evidence?
The other thing is, too, we talk about, just to finish the discussion, we talk about political violence. It seems to have become an accepted view that violence is acceptable against a couple of people. And I don't want to make this a discussion about Israel and Palestine. I mean, more so just across the board. We're seeing these attacks happen in the UK. We're seeing them happen in America. We're seeing them happen in France. We've now got a level of barbarism that's just been played out on our streets. And it's like, this is totally normal stuff, guys. This is just how it is these days. And, whether it's Charlie Kirk or the CEO that Luigi Mangione killed or whatever, the ISIS brides even, these positions, these actions of these people can be defended so long as it's within the ideological view of the left. And I reject it in its entirety. I am very hard line on crime. If you have committed murder, I'm sorry, you are wiped of your human rights. You don't get a say anymore. That's the way I view it. If you have been proven to have taken a life, out, bye, see you later, in prison, rest of your life, don't care. And so, when I see the way that the ISIS brides have been treated, like they were welcomed with pizzas, the government assisted them in some capacity. They denied it, but I mean, how did they get here? How'd they pay for it? How'd they get passports? And then what happened after that? Who organized the cars? Who organized the food? There was assistance there. You're telling us there wasn't. These people are somewhat welcomed back in. They're treated differently. And you're right. If it was on the other side of the aisle, I mean, we've just seen this happen in the UK, or was it in Scotland? A Scottish man went on a rampage and he didn't kill anyone, but he stabbed Muslim people. And Keir Starmer, I mean, he's gone now, but Keir Starmer came out and made a big song and dance. This is disgusting. We don't want this. I'm like, well, where was that energy when old mate was trying to behead the other guy? What? So why do you think we've gotten to this point where the left seem to, I mean, to be fair, they've always done this historically. This isn't anything new. It's happened in the French Revolution. It's happened throughout the American Revolution and the Russian Revolution. The left like the death. The left are pro-death. Yeah. Are we going to see a point? Sorry,
I was going to say this is a lot of this. A lot of this is their creation. Once the genie's out of the bottle, it's hard to put it back in, and that's pretty much what's happened. And we used to have a world where we, had a better sense of justice. Like justice actually meant something, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If you were a traitor, you were a traitor to this nation. If you went and joined ISIS, yeah, you might come back, but you might be executed. You know what I mean? Like I'm kind of okay with that world to some degree. We had understanding of where we stood, but today we have a lot of these social justice elements within the law as well. So it's like, these teens who are robbing people and breaking into houses, can we fix them somehow, right?
Yeah.
And maybe you can give them one chance. But sometimes in Victoria, we have instances where they've given them 50 chances or 60 chances. They've been out on bail. So it just seems ridiculous. So obviously it doesn't work in that capacity. And you said the guy from, is it El Salvador or what's his name?
Nayib Bukele.
Yeah, so I like that guy. I know people have issues with him, but he responded to what was happening within his particular community where it had gotten out of hand. And he'd taken very hardline measures to sort the cartels out and to sort out MS-13 and these gangbangers who are just destroying that country. Yeah. We're not at that level, obviously, but we do have issues where our justice system, I don't think, really meets the needs of what's happening in our society at the moment.
It doesn't meet the expectations of
the community. Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah.
I do feel I'm a guy, obviously, and I can maybe look a bit scary when I'm walking around outside. So I do feel a bit safer. Like I'm not going to get mugged or approached that easily. But I can understand, walking around even the city at certain times of the night, it's not the same as it used to be, Carl. So clearly something's changed, and that's community wide, and it's unforgivable that they've let it come to this state.
Yeah. I agree with you. And just on Nayab, Topher and I butt heads on him a lot. I'm very, very pro Nayab because it's exactly what you said. He came into a country where they were the homicide capital of the world. And the entire country was fearful of MS-13 and I forget the other gang. And homicide was so rampant that, it stopped the way they lived their lives. Now, like you said, we're not at that point here in Australia, not even close. But we do have elements of it, particularly around youth crime. And we allow it to get so bad that the only reasonable response is exactly that, a heavy-handed approach. Had this been tackled in 2023 and, you deal with the severe cases quite quickly and swiftly, then we wouldn't have got it to this point where it's so rampant. And not only is it rampant, it's brazen. These kids are openly slashing people with machetes. Yeah. And they're like,
we don't have to be heartless. Like I would take these kids out, for instance, and send them to some military camp that's run by the state government.
Agree.
And they have to be there for 5 years and be put through some type of training and education. And it's maybe it doesn't sound so Western and freedom like, and we sound like a bit more, maybe what they do in China, but like in
Maybe
these conditions.
China's the right idea.
Well, in some regards, like some of these Asian countries do have the right idea. Like, you go there with drugs, they will execute you.
Yeah.
And it's a deterrent. It's a problem for their society. I'm not saying they're perfect countries.
Yeah.
I love our Western freedom and the sense of freedom that we have and the rights that we have, but it's being abused. And if you're not going to deal with it through the justice system, come up with creative ideas like Bukele did. Come up with some ideas for these kids. Put them into camps. Make them, valuable members of society by training them to do something useful with their lives.
And again, this might outrage people, but I'm going to say it anyway. I mean, if I had any say in the policy and the way I view the world at the moment, particularly with our youth and how disengaged they are and how nihilistic they've become, if they're committing these offences and they've done it not once, not twice, a whole host of times, don't we have that Micklem Centre, that we built for COVID? These kids need a better example in their life. And it's not about being heartless. I don't think you shove them in Ravenhall and put them in, maximum security and just lock them up. That's not the answer at all. You've got to put them into some kind of structure and help them become productive members of society. And an example I would say is like, let's say you put them in a somewhat, minimum security setting, right? So obviously they can't get out. You limit their access to social media. You limit their access to their phones. Obviously they shouldn't get phones at all. But you put them through an apprenticeship, 3-4 years, they can choose what they want to do. I don't know, you choose something, plumber, whatever, electrician, and that's their job. Their job is to work as an apprentice would, and they can do it on the grounds. They can bring things in. They can teach them how to use a lathe, how to use tools. I don't know, do what you do as a tradie, right? And then not only does it give them a skill, right? All of a sudden they've got this skill that they didn't have before. That skill can be traded for money. They've got an opportunity to come out and be reformed and then participate in society. But no one ever suggests that. It's always we need to be more supportive.
It's a very controversial thing in Australia, like especially around Indigenous youth and crime and stolen children and these things. Like there's all these other layers to this, Carlz, which makes it complicated. But I agree with you. I see the vision. But we have problems, right? We have problems. Huh?
Am I outrageous?
No, like it kind of makes sense. Like this is how we would have done things in the past. We wouldn't tolerate this, right? The families are obviously letting these kids down. They're hopeless. The families are hopeless. If these kids are repeat offenders, the state doesn't really want to be responsible for them. But we all have to suffer the consequences of this. There needs to be other solutions. But the problem is, let's say you put them in a camp somewhere to train them and whatever. You'll have lefties training themselves to the doors.
Yeah.
We can't even when we treat like illegal immigrants in a manner, they like to chain themselves to things and cry about things and make it a massive political storm. So like it's not easy to get these things achieved as well within our society.
Yeah.
But I don't hold out hope that there's going to be a solution like that in Australia in the near future. We're going to be seeing more of the same. It's just unfortunate that we can't really do much about it. But what we can do is obviously change our whole nation in terms of the direction that we're heading, and obviously cut down on things like mass immigration that might help with some of this in the future.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of things that we can do in the interim, but I think it's more so a philosophical change. That's actually the kind of war we're fighting. People keep talking about World War III. I hate saying it, but we're already in it. It's an information war. It's a ideological war. It's a philosophical war. We're two opposing ideologies that are, that can't exist. They can't coexist. And that is the progressive left and that is the capitalist right. The thing is, I pointed out that reel before where people were trying to school me on economics. And I go, okay, that's where it starts. These people have been spoon-fed socialism, Marxist ideology, and that's why they approach the world with the lens that they do. How do you get people out of that? Usually people grow out of it. Topher makes this point all the time. Kids are naturally socialist, right? Like they live off their parents, but then it comes a point where they get their independence and, get that freedom and then off they go. That's not happening anymore. And that's why we have a vast majority.
Well, there's too much safety nets. There's too much interventions. There's too much. Yeah. And it's good to have a safety net, but there's probably too much now. The government can help you in ways that they probably wouldn't have helped in the past, and your parents would have helped, and kids would have had to rely more on their families and the people that they know. But now they can leave the family home and in a way that, doesn't really impact them. You know what I mean? It's crazy. Like, so all these things kind of come together to create this society, and we're feeling that more in the West, but we're seeing that happening in other parts of the world as well now because of social media. You are getting more delinquent kids in parts of Asia where you didn't necessarily have that because they're being exposed to these Western ideas. You know what I mean? Like, so it is this ideas that we have in the West about freedom and things. There are some issues with that if it goes unchecked and there's too much government involvement in terms of separating kids from their parents and giving them the ability to do things. Yeah,
I agree. We're going to do some quick run through some super chats. I think there's a couple of we've missed here. So let's have a look. We've got, you can fool some people all of the time and all of the people some of the time, but never can you fool all the people all of the time.
Yeah, I agree.
100% fair haul. We've got Baz, the dark horse. The left eat their own. Albo will never be safe. Well, yes.
The left, they do, but if you're the supreme leader, if you're the supreme leader of the communists, you're kind of safe for a little bit. They are very loyal in a weird way.
I mean, just look at North Korea.
Or Chairman Dan.
Exactly. Found hope. Carlz, will you address what you were going to about an hour ago before Rukshan took over? I think we talked about disenfranchised people found hope. I think we addressed it. Where are we? Israel government is very well known for spying. No, thank you. Aren't all governments?
They're very good. I don't know if you guys have watched, if there's a show recommendation, Carlz, The Spy on Netflix.
Okay.
The story of Eli Cohen. It's called The Spy. It's actually with Sacha Baron Cohen.
Okay.
Is the actor in it. It's very good. But yeah, the Mossad are very good spies. I mean, they're one of the best intelligence agencies in the world, especially with what they did with those pages recently in Lebanon. You have to give it to them. Like I would hope that ASIO is as good, if not better. I don't think so because of some of the things we've been seeing in Australia. But Mossad is very good. They're very good at what they do.
Shouldn't we have a defense force like that? Shouldn't we have an
we
intelligence
should aspire to have the best. We should have the best intelligence agencies, of course. They get billions of dollars from us.
Agree. Found hope. No, go home. Found hope. You've contributed a lot tonight. Thank you.
Thank
I think
you.
that's with regards to the mass migration. We are one, but we are many. Agree. Here we go. Baz the dark horse. The space autist taking over Twitter may have saved civilization, referring to
Elon.
I think everyone agrees. How do you feel about Elon, Rukshan?
I think he's arguably going to go down as one of the greatest industrialists of our time. The things that he's working on in terms of technology-wise, you'd have to go back to maybe when the railroads came around and some of those industrialists that were involved in that period, because that's when you had the railroads, that you had, the very early beginnings of electricity and things being electrified. We're going through a similar phase right now where we're having, electric car push has really been pushed by Tesla. And that's becoming more mainstream with other brands. So he's responsible for that in many ways. You also have the space exploration, which is, again, on another level. We're talking about interplanetary civilization at some point, especially, at least with the moon and Mars. Maybe not in our lifetimes, but we'll see the beginnings of that, at least, I think, some parts of it. But then you also have all the other technological advancements, around the AI and the data center stuff that Elon is working on, and all the other side technologies. So I think he's going to go down as one of the biggest industrialists of our generation into the history books. But obviously he's fraught with being involved in the culture war as well. So it's a bit different with X and all this.
I look at him like a modern day Da Vinci, and I know people are going to be like, Harley, how could you say this? But think about what he's responsible for. And they're like, oh, it's not his invention or whatever. It's like, it's not about necessarily inventing it all himself or doing all the work with his own hands. It's about being the kind of innovator and leader that creates opportunity for it to be done. You look at the way G, my partner, he's really into SpaceX, and the way that Elon is so focused on iteration and just going out there, and even if they blow up, let's just keep trying. Let's, at the speed of which they're trying to innovate, it's unheard of in today's world, and that's why I call him a modern Da Vinci. I think we'll be talking about Elon We won't be. We'll be dead. But in 100 years from now, he'll be brought up.
Yeah, he gets the right people around him. That's the thing. It's not always about inventing stuff per se. It's having the vision and being able to do that. And he's someone that's managed to do that very well.
Maybe that's the word, visionary. He's the visionary of our age. All right, next super chat. Silencing us is why the lefties are shocked at the rise of One Nation. Suppressing thoughts causes anger. Unaddressed anger causes violence. Yeah, look, I agree. I don't think the right, some people might be violent, but that's not really kind of the way the right argues. Maybe you might disagree with me there, Rukshan. I think you can, the right are traditionally conservative, not in their values, but in the way that they show up. And you'll find that there's a lot of people who might have conservative opinions, but they don't speak them out loud. They're smarter than that. They know it comes with consequences, so they don't. But I think if you push people hard enough, that's when all of a sudden they go, all right, I'm stepping in,
Yeah. I mean, the riots and things like this, for instance, that we've seen recently, that's more something traditionally I would align with the left in terms of, let's go back to BLM days, George Floyd days, burning up cities around America. I put that behavior more with the left, but we are seeing instances of that now within the right itself as well, because they're frustrated.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, I don't think it's traditionally where we've been at. We've managed to solve a lot of issues without heading down that path. People seem to be getting excited for it as well, in a weird way. They're like, oh, it's coming. There's going to be some sort of violent thing that's coming. I don't think it works like that, because if you see how much the power the state has amassed, they've amassed that power for a reason. And we saw glimpses of that really during COVID, towards the end of the protest time during COVID, when they brought out those big Bearcat vehicles and started shooting at people in Melbourne. If it ever really got to that, these countries that we look at in the West as these free-loving countries would actually put the boot down. Albanese would mobilize. Albanese would definitely mobilize the military against people here if he had to. That's what we're up against.
It's not if he had to. He's just waiting for the moment. And
he's waiting for the moment.
Let's be honest.
Yeah, which sounds crazy, but this is kind of what we're dealing with. So it's never going to get to those levels. I think we have to be a lot smarter about how we approach this and not go down the same path as the left and just turn to violence. We have to be very calculated. And I think you can be calculated and smart in terms of how you get political influence and power. At the end of the day, if you can get yourself into political influence and power, you can change the direction of the country. Trump showed that it can be done. Trump changed the direction of America. In a few short years, all of that woke lefty gender stuff, they got rid of all of that. The Olympics ended up banning transgender athletes. You can change the culture if you can get a mandate and into political power.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it can go both ways.
So we've got Pauline has just offered Carl a job. Is that true? I haven't seen.
Maybe. I'm sure she would have offered him a job. Yeah, why not? Whether he'll take it is another thing. Maybe he'll run as a Victorian state leader. I don't know. Maybe he'll be parachuted.
Maybe he will. I mean, stranger things have happened. He's a free agent. Maybe
he's a free agent.
Maybe this was the plan all along. Who knows?
Maybe he wanted to join One Nation. Maybe that's why he wanted to get fired. Who knows?
Yes. We've got a super sticker from Darren Kiter. I hope I said that right. What else have we got?
Thank you.
I think I've shared them all, guys. Here we go. Don't trust him. He saw his career was over. He has controlled opposition. He is a traitor. He must be exposed. I think that's regarding Carl.
I'm pretty sure Farnhope. I tend to agree with you, Farnhope. I don't know about controlled opposition. I think he's just finding a new audience after selling us lies for a long time on Channel 9.
And last one, should we get a public holiday if the Socceroos win?
I don't know. Win the game on Friday night or just in general? If they win the World Cup, yes. I think, if they won the World Cup, we should get, it'll be like the America's Cup, right? We should get some sort of ability to celebrate it in a massive way, because that would be a massive achievement for Australia. If they get to the next round, I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't particularly care. Is that bad? I'm no offense. I'm not a massive.
No, it's not. If you're talking about the monoculture of Australia, soccer's not really a.
Soccer is not really it. Are you an AFL person?
Footy. I am, just because I grew up in Victoria for sure, and my friends and stuff played footy, but not really like hardcore AFL person. No, I've been like to a handful of games, and yeah, it's definitely exciting, but I'm not really like religiously following it anymore for sure.
I used to be. I put my hand up as a sad sorry Essendon supporter, but
yeah, I'm Hawthorn supporter. There you go. Back in the day, during Jason Dunstall and stuff, so a long time ago.
OG, yeah. Well, I was around the James Hird, Mark McCurry era, Dustin Fletcher. But I don't like what AFL's become. It's incredibly woke.
There's not much happening at Essendon at the moment, so you're not missing much.
I was there at the last grand final we won, and I was also there at the grand final we lost, and that was it. That's the end of Essendon. So amazing. Anything else you want to offer, Rukshan, before we wrap up? Anything else?
No, I didn't know I'd have an opportunity to offer something. That's interesting.
You can offer anything. You want to bring up something wild?
Nah, nothing like that. But yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks for having me on board today, Carlz, and to the audience as well. I'm sorry that I'm not Topher. This is the future of Australia you're looking at right now. So
Topher's been replaced.
Topher's getting replaced. I'm the great replacement.
Yeah, he was lazy and slack, and look, this immigrant's just come in to take his position.
Someone's asking for my socials, guys. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, or X at The Real Rukshan. I usually hang out on X. I'm not on Instagram. I'm not on Instagram. Instagram is very. I've been posting stuff recently, but it's very emotional. I feel like Instagram's the woman's space, Carlz. That's where the women are. I'm not being misogynistic. I'm just saying everyone's very emotional on Instagram.
Instagram requires you to be a caricature of yourself for sure. Absolutely. That's the only way to do it. And you kind of got to like have a character and lean into it. And for me, that's spicy, Carlz. But
maybe.
All right. How can we support you? You got a grift?
I don't have a grift per se, but guys, I'm working at Rebel News, so you can go to Rebel News store and buy one of these cool t-shirts or other t-shirts to support Rebel News, or just in general, support the work that me and Avi are doing at rebelnews.com.au.
Excellent. And guys, if you like the show, thank you so much for everyone who super chatted. You can support the Oddcast via Ko-fi. Am I pointing at it? Is it the right direction? I never know where it is. Guys, that's the platform to support the Oddcast. And if you have any suggestions for who you'd like me to talk to, everyone seems to love you and Dibba. You're our two main people that people love. But just for the record, guys, I have tried really hard to reach out to so many people across the political aisle, and no one has said yes. It's not from lack of trying. I am trying.
Yeah.
So, you know what? I will say this. If the opportunity arose, I would actually love to sit and talk to Abby or Hannah or any of them, and I wouldn't be antagonistic. I'm not going in there for a fight. That's just not my speed. But I just don't think I'll get the opportunity.
I don't know. I don't think there's much going on there, Carlz. You can probably talk to, like, I don't know, an object and get more out of it.
I'll just get screamed at. My ears are quite sensitive. I don't want to be yelled at, you know? All right, guys, we'll say thank you so much again to Rukshan, who, by the way, I think we have the best conversation because, like, it's just we're allowed to talk to each other. You're not insulting me for once. It's nice. It's refreshing. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining yet another episode. Please share the show. If you haven't already, please subscribe and say thank you so much to Rukshan for joining us. And we'll see you next Monday with someone else. Who that person is, I don't know. See you guys. Gotta keep